Welcome once again to Hermetic Temple Radio.
Mindless corruption. That's how it all ends. Mindless corruption. Armageddon began. Religion, community,
Oh, that was a different intro, wasn't it? That was Mindless Corruption by, I don't know, I can't read it. Schizo! Thank you, Schizo, for that little bit of introductory music. I didn't play the whole thing. I just thought I'd turn it off and then start screaming, but you kind of get the feeling. You know, mindless corruption. And that definitely describes the age that we are living in. Mindless corruption on every freaking level. We see it in the bought and paid for elections that we just saw, you know. And I'm not saying that because Donald Trump won. No, I would have said that if Hillary Clinton won. As a matter of fact, I am shocked that the election rigging ran in favor of Donald Trump rather than Hillary Clinton, because just judging by, you know, the amount of election rigging that we saw during the Democratic primaries in 2016, I thought for sure that Hillary would have the general election just as rigged as she had the primaries. But, of course, mindless corruption. You know, the Trump people pulled it off, and I think, you know, a lot of people are saying, okay, now folks that didn't want to investigate allegations of election fraud when Bernie Sanders lost the primary elections, these same people have been saying, oh, we have evidence now of election fraud in the general election, and we really should investigate. And it's just complete and total hypocrisy, because as we are going to get into here in the next half hour, I used to believe that corruption was on the level of the GOP and the GOP only. And that was back after the elections of 2000, and you know, when Al Gore lost to George W. Bush. And I thought it was pretty obvious then that you know, there was some skullduggery going on in the election, and I thought that you know, there was election fraud where politicians were rigging the vote for themselves, and I thought it was only being done by the Republicans. But I think we've seen in 2016 with the Democratic primaries, those elections were just as rigged, more rigged, in fact, than the election of 2000 or 2004. Is just mindless corruption affecting every political institution and practically every walk of life, including the spiritual and religious worlds. A lot of us, I think, like to compartmentalize their thinking and their life. And they think that, okay, politics is obviously corrupt, obviously flawed, but hey, I can still trust the banks, right? And other folks will say, well, okay, the politicians are all corrupt, the banksters are all corrupt, but at least I can trust, you know, my church or my temple or my synagogue. And that is actually a point of blindness. Corruption can sink into any aspect of our lives, whether it be the political arena or the financial arena, or even the spiritual and the religious arena. There's an old saying that power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And whenever we have institutions that are powerful and institutions that demand our total and complete allegiance without question, then you are dealing with an organization that is probably as corrupt as the Nazi Third Reich, or the communist China under Mao, or communism under Joseph Stalin, or any other corrupt organization you can think of. Any time that you have an organization that demands your unquestioned loyalty, where you just accept everything they teach as the gospel truth, then you are dealing with an organization that, if it's not already corrupt, it is going to be corrupted. Because we need checks and balances. We need to be ever vigilant of these organizations and these institutions to make sure that when corruption starts to seep in to these institutions, be they political, financial, or religious, that people will take notice, people will take action to clean up that institution or that organization. And when you have an environment that says that we just unquestioningly follow the orders given to us and unquestioningly accept the teachings given to us by these organizations, then you have an environment where they are at complete and absolute total control of everything. And, in the political arena, a corrupt political establishment has the ability to tell you a lie and make you believe that it is the truth. In finances, in the world of the banksters and whatnot, you can have thieves taking money out of your bank account and out of your wallet in the form of fees and fines and penalties. And they can convince you that, hey, this is just the price of doing business. This is just the things that we do. There's an old joke. Which is the bigger thief? A man who robs a bank or a man who opens a bank? But no, when we accept all these things without question, then we're setting ourselves up. And the same thing goes with spiritual and religious institutions. It's been brought to my attention, and actually I think by now it should be common knowledge, that most of our institutions worldwide are run by sociopaths. And if you know the definition of a sociopath, I don't have the exact definition in front of me right now, but a loose definition would be anybody that wants power and does not care who they have to hurt in order to get it. That is a very loose definition of a sociopath. And that idea of hurting people in order to get power is not just limited to doing, minor insults or taking small amounts of money out of their bank account. It goes up to maiming and killing on a grand scale or a small scale. Whatever is needed for me to get power and to maintain power and to have absolute power. That is one definition of a sociopath. And if you take a good look at the people that we elect in governments, they tend to be sociopaths. If you go out and you kill your next door neighbor, that's murder. That's a crime that you can go to jail for the rest of your life, or in some states be executed for. But when politicians do a similar thing and assassinate heads of state, or approve of drone strikes on people, executing them without trial, just on the suspicion that they're doing something that is un-American or unpatriotic, that's accepted by many people as being okay. They don't see it as being murder. When the individual does it, that's murder. When the government or politician does it, well, that's just policy. And we have these distinctions that we create, and we give power to these sociopaths because they ask for it, and they promise to keep us safe, and they promise to look after the national interest, and we just give them all kinds of power. Right now, the President of the United States has more power than at any other time in American history. The power to assassinate American citizens or anyone worldwide using drone strikes or any other methods needed. The power to declare a national emergency and stay in power for a undetermined length of time. We could easily have a dictator rise in the United States at any moment because Congress and various presidents have given the executive branch the power to declare a national emergency and to remain in office without elections, without the will of the people, just by fiat, just by national decree. And this is the kind of thing that sociopaths love. They want absolute power, and they don't care who they have to hurt or kill in order to get it, including the truth. And it's not just in politics that we see sociopaths gaining power. Any kind of power structure where you have people who can attain control either over a country or over a company or over finances or over people's souls. Those are positions that sociopaths will naturally gravitate towards. A person that wants to control through political power will naturally seek out the world of politics. Now, a sociopath that wants absolute financial power will probably think that, nah, I don't want the presidency, I want a position of real power. I think Ted Turner is said to have said that. I'm not calling him a sociopath. I really don't know much about Ted Turner at all. But I do like that quote. But that's what a sociopath might think, that wants to attain absolute control in the financial sector. And instead of going for the presidency or becoming a congressman or a congresswoman, a sociopath that wants financial control will, of course, open a bank or try to take control of a bank or a series of banks, or might gravitate towards being the CEO of a large multinational corporation. And sociopaths with that goal in mind might seek out those sectors of our world in order to do their thing. And again, in order to get up to the highest realms of power, they will have no qualms about lying or cheating or stealing or maiming or even killing if they think they can get away with it. And that is how a sociopath might attain financial power. Now, one thing that is overlooked and should not be overlooked, and that's what I'm going to dedicate the rest of this broadcast to, is that we also have sociopaths and power-hungry people in the world of religion and spirituality. We have not just a system of financial enslavement going on in the world and political enslavement, but also spiritual enslavement. And this is something that I imagine several of my listeners out there might take issue with. You might be thinking, okay, I'll go along with you that the government is corrupt. I'll go along with you to a certain extent that the banks are corrupt. But my own church, my own mosque, my own synagogue? No, they have to be pure. They can't be corrupt. Maybe, yeah, corrupted to a certain extent, but I just can't accept that it's all as corrupt as, say, the world of politics or the world of the banksters. And yet, what I'm going to do in the second half of this half hour is give you a few examples of spiritual enslavement and how the American people and, well, actually people across the world have submitted to this form of spiritual enslavement by being blind order followers. I'm going to play a short song here by Sophia Marie, Fear is the Enemy, and I'll be right back.
Fear is just one's enemy. Look at what you have become. Clouds of gray color, the many faces fronting you. Cast the mask behind the door.
Spiritual enslavement and the order followers. I am not sure when it comes to the term the order followers if Mark Passio coined that term or not, but he certainly has ran with it. And normally when he talks about the order followers, he's talking about folks like in the military or even folks in the civilian sector who just blindly believe and accept and obey what they are told to believe, accept, and obey. Soldier, of course, carrying out orders no matter how atrocious they may be. I won't get into that, but I think even in this day and age of censorship, we've heard stories of atrocities being committed by military powers of all nations, including our own. And then, of course, the order followers can also be described as folks who just blindly accept whatever their government tells them to blindly accept. And just do it. The Patriot Act. God, that is a perfect example of the order followers just blindly doing what they're told to do. When the Patriot Act was shoved down our throat back after September 11th, 2001, then President George W. Bush, is that his actual name? Well, King George II, I like to call him. But he and Dick Cheney went to Congress and just basically said, okay, we need this legislation. It's called the Patriot Act. And God, I forget how many hundreds of pages it was. But they were told, okay, just don't read it, just sign it, and this will give us power to protect our country. And most of the Congress followed those orders. And there's only two, I believe, congressmen who actually read the Patriot Act, and they both voted against it. 2 out of, God, I don't know how many, 300 or 400 people. And, God, just a perfect example of the order followers. We need this. We want you to do it. Don't even think about it. Just put your name, sign your name on the dotted line, give your approval, and we'll call you a good, patriotic American for doing it. And, we see this happening, of course, in the military, where soldiers have to follow orders. If you have an army that's made up of soldiers who question their orders, what kind of an army is that going to be? Oh, well. And same thing with politics. If we have a world that's just full of people that don't follow what the government tells them to do, of course, a lot of people would say, well, we have anarchy, we have confusion. But actually, in a healthy environment in which folks are allowed to think and reason and use their own minds and use their own consciousness, and in a world where people are awake and alert to the reality that people who should not have power, like the sociopaths I was talking about in the first half of our broadcast, people who should not have power have already arisen to power. And we need some sort of check on that kind of corruption entering into our world, no matter what arena that may occur in. And when you have a world in which people are told to just blindly follow orders, no matter how heinous, and in which people are asked to just blindly do what they are told to do, no matter how innocuous it may seem or how heinous it may seem, without questioning the higher-ups and protesting to the higher-ups, then we have a world in which 1% of humanity, or perhaps even less, maybe even only 1/10 of 1% of the human race, has absolute control over the 99%, and the 99% are reduced or have reduced themselves to the level of blind sheep following a corrupt shepherd, or even, and I hate to say this because I hate to be insulting towards dogs, But we have reduced ourselves to the level of trained dogs. You notice how a dog rarely will kind of disobey the will of the master. Sometimes they will, and they'll get scolded for it, and then they'll come right back up to you, wanting to hug you and kiss you and just make you happy. They're just people pleasers by nature. Contrast that to a cat. You tee off a cat, that cat's not going to come to you. That cat is not going to be trained by you. That cat is rather going to try to train you. And when we just blindly follow orders and just do what we're told, and even when we see that those orders are violating certain natural laws and certain spiritual truths and just basic tenets of human decency, and we just follow those orders because we're being told to, then in point of fact we reduce ourselves to the level of blind sheep or trained dogs, and we have relinquished our humanity in so doing that. And it's not just in the political world and in the military and in the financial world that we see this happening. It also occurs in the spiritual realm, in the realm of spirituality and religion. And a lot of people might protest that, but just try, okay, as an experiment, question something. And sometimes, if it's a small thing, like, questioning whether there should be a round table for the church board meeting or a long rectangular table, maybe that won't be seen as bucking authority too much. But try to just question some basic, deeply held spiritual truths and see what happens. And for God's sake, don't just do it for the sake of doing it to see what's going to happen. But if something is going on in your church or your mosque or your synagogue, and you're being troubled by it, and they're asking you to believe in something that you just can't believe in, or assent to actions that you cannot assent to, and you feel you have the liberty to disagree without placing yourself in danger, without placing yourself in a position where you might be executed for your beliefs, go ahead and question the authority and the teaching openly and see what happens. I know in my own personal situation, I did not have the guts to question what I was taught in my church of my birth. And I sought to become a leader, a priest within the Roman Catholic Church. And over time I felt that, okay, I could not do that. So I went over into the Protestant realm of things, thinking that things might be better. But no matter where I went, I was being asked to believe in certain things that just didn't make sense to me. And one biggie was the belief in a kind and loving God that created us, created the world, creates nature, creates the wonder and the glory of the universe. An infinitely kind, wise, and loving God who would torture his own children to death simply because they screw up a few times. Simply because they don't go to the right church, or simply because they don't believe the right doctrine. And yet, you have a lot of people, and not just in Christian churches, but also you have the same mindset in a lot of other, shall we say, fundamentalist religious institutions that say, yeah, God loves us, we are the children of the divine, and we are God's chosen people, and fuck everybody else. I hate to put it that bluntly, but I mean, sometimes you have to put it that bluntly in order to wake people up. Screw everybody else. God loves us, and unless you are one with us, unless you do the same things that we do and worship the same way, you're going to go to hell. That's something I could never assent to. I bit my tongue on it on numerous occasions, even after rising to the position of pastor, in which, interestingly enough, when I rose to the position of being a church pastor, people wanted me to have absolute control. They wanted me to act kind of like a spiritual dictator, and I refused. You know, they wouldn't really put it in those exact words, but they would say, Pastor, you are our leader. You need to take power over the church board, and I mean, you are like our God. Your word needs to be accepted without question. And you need to give us fire and brimstone on Sunday morning and Sunday afternoon and just tell us how it is and pound that pulpit, yeah! And I refused, because that's not the way I'm wired. I believe that people have the right to question. I love the teachings of the Buddha. The Buddha didn't come around and say, look, I am the wise spiritual master. You need to listen to me and me alone and believe everything I say, or else you're going to hell. The Buddha said, question everything. Accept nothing unless it agrees with your own common sense, with your own research. Unless it makes sense to you, don't accept it, no matter who says it. Even if I am saying it and you don't agree, do not feel like you have to accept it. Now, to me, that is spiritual liberation. Now, the folks that believe in spiritual enslavement, and they normally don't like to admit that they believe in spiritual enslavement, they use other words like leaders, or pastors, or shepherds. But folks that believe that they should have absolute control don't want to be questioned. And so, if you want to find out whether you're being led in your spiritual or religious institution by a person who is advocating enslavement, or by a person who is advocating free will and liberation, just try questioning. And question honestly some of the teachings that they teach. If there is something in the doctrine, or in the dogma, or in the teachings, or the practices, or the holy books, that you just cannot consent to, or ascribe to, or consent to, I think I've already said that, then question it. And, question privately, to your pastor. And if your pastor is a good pastor, a good spiritual leader who wants to acknowledge, your free will and encourage people to seek liberation and enlightenment, then that pastor will listen to you. And that pastor may actually say, you've raised some good points. And if your spiritual leader is a real gem, then that spiritual leader might just look at you and say, I never really thought of that before. I need to think about that. I need to pray about that. And can I get back with you later, like maybe sometime next week, so we can have an informed and honest discussion about this issue? Now, those are the gems. I do not come from the point of view that everybody in religion is corrupt. Just like I don't come from the point of view that everybody in politics is corrupt, or everybody in the financial sector is corrupt. I do tend to believe that over 90% of the folks in all these fields are corrupt, but I also believe that there are some real gems out there. Some real, honest people that may come around only once in a lifetime or twice in a lifetime. But folks that are honest and actually want to serve the common good instead of purely their own good. And in graduate school, I was a theologian. I am a theologian. Studied philosophy and religion, religious studies. And in graduate school, I had this one teacher that was a real gem. Because when we were doing a tour of the Holy Land, well, let's just call it Israel. Nothing holy about the place from what I can see, actually. But okay, let's just call it Israel. I'll leave the political commentary aside for now. But this teacher would take us to certain biblical sites, certain archaeological sites. And he would look at us and he would say things like, okay, I'm going to give you students 10 reasons why this site is the place where Jesus multiplied the fish and the loaves. And of course our eyes would light up and we would think, oh wow, we're being shown the place where it happened and we're going to be given proof that it happened here. But he wouldn't stop there. He would take a deep breath and smile, and then he would say, and then after that, I am going to give you 10 good scholarly reasons why this cannot be the site where Jesus multiplied the fish and the loaves. And he would do that just over and over again at every archaeological site he took us to, because he was trying to teach us. Most people, even people that think of themselves as religious scholars, theologians, pastors, great people, great men and women within their church hierarchy, they tend to think that if a scholar or two scholars or three scholars say that something is true, then it's got to be true. But what this teacher was trying to teach us is that not all scholars agree on anything. There are some scholars that fit in one school of thought, one religious camp that will say, okay, this is it and this is why we think it is, and just accept it. And then there'll be another group of scholars from a completely different perspective, a completely different point of view, that will say, well, no, that can't be right. And these are the reasons why I think this can't be right. And these are the reasons why I just cannot agree with my other, scholarly contemporaries. And yet, when people in churches and Bible studies will want to make a point, they'll throw out the names of certain scholars, and they'll imply that, okay, if this very smart scholar says it's true, then it's got to be true. But they totally ignore the fact that there are other scholars out there, equally smart, with just as many letters after their name, perhaps more degrees than a thermometer, who feel totally different and are willing to present their reasons of why they think differently on this certain issue. So, the old trick of appealing to authority, we were taught back in the 1980s, is a very weak appeal, because you have all kinds of people that can be taken as authorities, and not all of them agree. And in a religious and spiritual environment in which the focus is on liberation and a free exchange of ideas, and is dedicated to getting at the truth and not just the party line or spiritual dogma or religious entrapment, they are going to encourage free thought, true discussion, a true debate focusing on the facts and the issues, and not just throwing mud or assassinating another person's credibility or character. They're going to be looking at the facts, and they are going to encourage people to disagree and to doubt. And they recognize that through doubt, through disagreement, through questioning everything that we've been told and testing it in the light of our own experience and our own inner truths, only that way can we truly grow. But when we go to the other extreme and just simply accept everything that's taught to us as being the gospel truth or being the absolute truth, and even when it insults our integrity as human beings and our humanity, and we just go along with it anyway, then we are not being free spiritual people. We are suffering under spiritual enslavement, and some folks out there might actually be enjoying their enslavement. And so when we speak of order followers, I think it's wrong to think of them only in the field of the military or the military-industrial complex or politics. We also have to look at this in the realm of the religious and the spiritual, because you've got a lot of religious and even spiritual teachers who don't like religion at all, but they love spirituality. We even have some spiritual leaders out there who want their word to be accepted no matter what. They want that absolute power and that absolute control. And if they're a true sociopath about it, they won't care who they have to hurt, or whose soul they have to damage, or even whose body they have to damage in order to get their way. And these are the wolves in sheep's clothing that many scriptures talk about, but we really are not told in our various churches, temples, and synagogues to watch out for. And these are the people that can do real damage, whether it be in the military or the political realm or the religious realm or even the New Age spiritual realm. So something to think about there and something to try. A little thought experiment, if you would. Go ahead and question authority. Speak your mind. Speak your soul. And see how you are treated. If you are accepted, then I think, okay, you're in a good place. You're in a place where you are free to grow. If you are rejected and demonized and perhaps even kicked out, well, then you were not in a place where you could grow. You were in a place that was dedicated to your enslavement and not your liberation. This is Frater Ralph, getting ready to sign off here. I'm going to play another song by Sophia Marie called Is This What Heaven Is Like? Is This What Heaven's Like? Excuse me. And then we'll close this out. Thank you all for tuning in, and look forward to coming to you again sometime in the not-so-distant future. Thank you.
Up in a distant place, a castle sits upon a hill so high. My thoughts run to this place, escape the world to live in dreams, fade away. I feel so high, my soul
Temple of the Infinite Universe is an interfaith temple organized along Hermetic lines taking root in Wheatland, Missouri. Temple of the Infinite Universe is dedicated to the cultivation of interfaith peace and harmony and the collection of wisdom from a wide variety of religious and spiritual traditions. Through dialogue and meditation, temple members are encouraged to develop inner peace and a close conscious contact with the divine source of their understanding. Services offered by Temple of the Infinite Universe include the various podcasts heard here on Hermetic Temple Radio, as well as discussion groups forming face-to-face and online. As we grow our physical temple, we hope to offer interfaith services in 2016. To support our building and operating needs, or to learn more about us, visit our website at www.hermetictemple.com. That's www.hermetictemple.com. Your support is appreciated. Blessings.